You have seen them before. Winged giants stepping down from the stars, an ancient astronaut in a golden helmet, a hidden planet swinging in from the dark, a gold mine, human DNA spliced in a laboratory older than history. This is the legend of the Anunnaki. The aliens, we are told, who came to Earth, engineered our species as a race of slaves, and were worshipped as gods by people who could not understand them. But follow that story back, past the documentaries, past the paperbacks, past the theories, and something strange happens. The trail does not vanish into deep antiquity. It stops, sharply, at a single book, published in the year 1976. And if you keep going, back past that book, 4,000 years, you reach the real source. Not a spaceship. A tablet of dried river clay, pressed with a reed in the first cities the world ever built. Last time, we watched a modern writer turn a philosopher's fable into a lost continent. This time, we watch another writer take the oldest gods humanity ever recorded and turn them into visitors from the stars. The Anunnaki were never aliens, and the true story of how their clay became a spaceship is stranger and richer than the hoax.
So who were they, really, before the aliens? To answer that, we leave the television behind and go to the library. The Anunnaki are no mystery. Their home was Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and the Euphrates, where more than 5,000 years ago, human beings built the first true cities on Earth and invented writing to run them. That writing was cuneiform, wedge-shaped marks pressed into wet clay with a cut reed. And on those tablets, the people of Sumer and Babylon wrote down their gods. The Anunnaki were the great ones. The name means roughly the princely offspring, the children of the sky god An. They were an assembly of the great gods, and their chief task, the tablets tell us, was to decree the fates of humankind. There was An, the father of the sky, Enlil, lord of wind and storm, Enki, the clever god of fresh water and wisdom. Later, as the religion changed across 2,000 years, the name shifted, coming to mean the solemn judges of the underworld, the ones who pass sentence on the dead. This was one of the most sophisticated faiths the ancient world produced, humanity's oldest named recorded gods. The earliest we can trace the word itself is to a Sumerian king named Gudea, who ruled around 2,100 years before the Common Era. 4,000 years before anyone spoke of aliens, the Anunnaki were already old.
There is one story about the Anunnaki that matters more than any other because it is the one a modern author would steal and turn inside out. It is the tale of how human beings were made. The Babylonians told it in an epic we call the atra-hasis. In the beginning, the story goes, there were only the gods, and the lesser gods among them were set to do all the labor of the world, endless, back-breaking work. At last, they rebelled and refused to dig another day. So the gods found a solution. Enki, the wise one, proposed it, and the mother goddess, called Nintu or Ninhursag, carried it out. She took clay and mixed it with the flesh and blood of a god slain for the purpose. From that clay and that divine blood, she shaped the first human beings. Their purpose was written into them from the start, to carry the labor the gods no longer wished to bear. The tablet says it plainly. I have imposed your drudgery on man. There is a second version in the creation epic called the Enuma Elish, where Marduk makes humankind from the blood of a rebel god named Kingu, again to serve the gods. Listen to what this is. It is a religious answer to the oldest human questions. Why do we labor? Why do we suffer? Why must we die? It is theology pressed into clay. Hold it exactly as it stands. Clay and a god's blood, to relieve the gods of their work. Because a modern writer is about to read the same passage and see a laboratory. That writer's name was Zecharia Sitchin. To understand what he did, you must understand he was not a fraud and not a fool. He was, by every account, an earnest and curious man. Born in 1920, he settled later in the United States and earned a university degree in economics. By profession, a journalist and an editor. On his own, he taught himself to read ancient cuneiform. That is no small feat. But it is not the same as formal training in Assyriology, the scholarly study of these languages. And that gap is where everything went wrong. In 1976, Sitchin published a book called The 12th Planet. It made an astonishing claim. The Anunnaki, he wrote, were not gods at all. They were a technologically advanced alien race from a hidden planet he called Nibiru, a world on a vast orbit that passed the Earth only once every 3,600 years. They had come here, he said, around 450,000 years ago, for one reason: gold. And when the aliens sent to the mines rebelled against the labor, the Anunnaki built a new creature to do the work, taking an early hominid and genetically engineering it into modern humanity. A slave race made in a lab, worshipping its makers as gods. It sold millions of copies in dozens of languages. And according to every scholar who studies these texts, almost none of it is true. To see why, we go back to a single word.
Sitchin's entire theory rests on one translation. He claimed that the word Anunnaki itself means those who from heaven came to earth. Say it out loud, and you can hear the whole legend inside it. Visitors from the sky arriving on the ground. There is only one problem. It is wrong. That is not what the word means, and no scholar of Sumerian accepts that it does. The accepted reading is the princely offspring, the children of the god An. Sitchin's version is not a translation at all. It is an invention, built by chopping the word into pieces and handing each a meaning it never carried. And that is the method behind the whole theory. Take a real ancient word or image and quietly retranslate it until it says what you already wanted. Consider his most famous piece of evidence, an ancient cylinder seal kept in a Berlin museum. Sitchin announced that it showed the sun, ringed by the 12 planets of the solar system. Proof, he said, that the Sumerians knew worlds modern astronomy would not find for thousands of years. But scholars who actually read the seal found something else. The little symbol he called the sun is the standard Mesopotamian sign for a star. The dots around it are stars too, not planets, and not even the right number of them. And the inscription on the seal, the writing Sitchin passed over, does not describe the heavens at all. It reads simply, "You are his servant," a line between two people, not a map of the solar system. Which brings us to Nibiru, the hidden planet at the heart of the whole story. Sitchin did not invent the word. Nibiru is real. It does appear in the ancient astronomical tablets. But it does not mean what he said. When Babylonian stargazers wrote of Nibiru, they were not pointing at a secret world hiding in the dark beyond the planets. In the actual texts, Nibiru is a name for a bright and familiar point of light, almost always the planet Jupiter, linked to the great god Marduk, a body they watched cross the sky every single year, not once every 3,600 years, every year. It was never hidden, never far away, and, this matters, it was never tied to the Anunnaki at all. And there is a deeper problem. The astronomers of Mesopotamia were careful watchers of the sky and recorded the planets they could see. There were 5, the 5 worlds visible to the naked eye. They had no telescopes and no notion of a distant 12th planet waiting to be found. The very solar system Sitchin says they secretly knew is one they could not possibly have seen. He took the planet Jupiter, bright, ordinary, watched by everyone, and turned it into a world of doom. But set the ancient texts aside and ask the simplest question of all. Forget what the Sumerians meant. Could a planet like Nibiru be out there anyway? A real world on a real 3,600-year orbit, swinging in toward the sun? Here, modern astronomy gives an answer that is not cautious and not hedged.
It is a flat, plain no. Think what such an orbit would require. A large planet, again and again, plunging through the inner solar system, close to the Earth and its neighbors. Every pass, its gravity would tug at the other planets, and over billions of years, a world like that would have wrenched their orbits out of shape in ways we could still measure. We measure no such thing. The planets move in calm, well-understood paths, no scar where Nibiru should have left one. And there is the simplest test of all. We would see it coming. A planet that large, approaching the sun, would grow brighter and brighter in our skies, plainly visible for months, even years. Astronomers have mapped the heavens in exquisite detail. There is nothing there. So when waves of prediction swept the internet that Nibiru would strike the Earth, first in the year 2003, then in the year 2012, then later still, the space agency NASA answered them directly. Nibiru, they said, and the other tales of wayward planets are an internet hoax. And the sky stayed exactly as it was.
So how did a Sumerian god become a household alien? Sitchin was not the first. 8 years before his book, in 1968, a Swiss writer named Erich von Daniken had published a bestseller arguing that gods all across the ancient world were really astronauts, misremembered by simpler minds. Sitchin gave that idea its most detailed, most scholarly-sounding form. Footnotes, cuneiform, a named planet, exact dates. And the story traveled into more books, then into television, where the ancient-astronaut theme became an entire genre, beamed into millions of homes. His planet broke loose from his pages to become the centerpiece of a recurring doomsday panic. Meanwhile, the people best equipped to check the claims, the scholars who actually read these languages, reached a verdict that was and remains unanimous. Sitchin's work was rejected resoundingly by Sumeriologists and Assyriologists as pseudo-history. The most patient of his critics was a scholar named Michael Heiser, who held a doctorate in the ancient Semitic languages and spent years documenting, line by line, exactly where the translations failed. And here is the part easiest to get wrong. The people who believe this were not stupid. The theory is seductive by design. It takes real tablets, real gold, real gods, and weaves them into one thrilling answer to the largest question there is. Where did we come from? It fooled millions of curious, intelligent people precisely because it was built so well. Being wrong is not the same as being foolish. The tablets simply say something else. So there was no spaceship, and to a certain kind of dreamer, that sounds like a loss. It isn't, because the real story is the better one. Strip away the aliens, and what remains is rarer than any UFO. It is the sight of the human race writing down its gods for the very first time. 4,000 years ago, in the first cities that ever existed, people asked the questions we have never stopped asking. Why are we here? Why must we work? Why do we die? And they pressed their answers into clay in the oldest words we can still read. That clay is the treasure. The Anunnaki are not evidence of aliens. They are evidence of us. Of the moment human beings first became storytellers, grand enough to imagine the whole cosmos and write it down. A modern author took that record and added a spaceship at the end. But the spaceship was added last. The clay came first. And that is the real lesson of the Anunnaki. How a myth mutates. How a line of ancient poetry becomes a lab report. How gods become aliens in the space of a single paperback. Next time on Myths and History, we stay in that same land between the rivers, but we turn from its gods to its greatest story. We follow the oldest written tale humanity has ever found, pressed into clay long before Homer ever sang. The epic of a king named Gilgamesh, and the great flood the ancient world could never forget. Until then, if you want to understand how the world really works, and how our oldest stories still shape it, stay with us and subscribe. The Codex closes until the next story is written.